Coming up on iOS Today, Rosemary Orchard and I, Mikah Sargent, explain and explore the Apple News app. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is iOS Today, episode 700 with Rosemary Orchard and Mikah Sargent, recorded Tuesday, April 16th, 2024, for Thursday, April 25th, 2024. Apple News, what you need to know. Hello and welcome to iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, HomePodOS, watchOS, iPadOS, VisionOS, and all the OSs in between. This is the show where we do our best to help you make the most of those wonderful devices you have by making use of all of the features that you have at your disposal. I don't know why I'm talking like this, but I'm Mikah Sargent, one of your hosts.
And I'm Rosemary Orchard, and sorry, Mikah, I got distracted in the pet section of Apple News again because there's so many cute pictures. Of course there are. And this is one of the reasons why I love Apple News. So, of course, we had to talk about it today, right?
Yes. So I want to give a shout out to dvnsh.com on our Club TWiT Discord, who posted in our Topics for iOS Today feedback section asking for us to talk about Apple News. That is what inspired this episode. If you are a member of Club TWiT, twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month, you should head to the Discord and look for the topic called Topics for iOS Today, where you can comment to ask for a topic to be covered. So I felt, inspired to cover the news and specifically Apple News. So we're going to kind of walk through Apple News and explain what it can do, what sort of changes you can make, that kind of thing. And it is a full-featured news app that has a lot going on. So without further ado, let's take a look. Now, it's important to understand that for me, I have an Apple Premium subscription, Apple One. And so because of that, I have access to kind of all of Apple's offerings, including News Plus. So if you are watching the video, then you will see at the top. If you're not, then I will describe it to you. A little icon, a little... what is it that I'm looking for? It's a sort of logo type that says Apple
Symbol?
News Plus. Yeah. So it's not just Apple News, but there's a little plus afterward. And that is for this specific date, April 16th, which also happens to be my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. And it is because, again, I'm a News Plus subscriber. It has that extra little bit. And we'll talk about what features are available to Apple News Plus members versus non-Apple News Plus members. Now, it will immediately show you some of the top stories based on a few things. Just what Apple's own news editors believe is the top news, but also your location. So if you're based in the US or elsewhere, or if you have interests based in those locations, and you will be able to scroll to see kind of some of the big stories. They're presented as tiles, and tapping on any of the stories will take you to that specific story from that specific publication. So this story from the Wall Street Journal kind of pops up, and you will see a sort of simplified view that still keeps a lot of the Wall Street Journal's own branding. So here's an Axios story up at the top. We can see the Axios logo. We can see this specific piece. And as I scroll through, if there are images, it will pop that up, but it also has information about other things. Now, I want to talk about some of the features and functionality that are built into this so that you can kind of understand. Which means that I get to talk about one of my favorite buttons, the 3 dots button, the More button. And down at the bottom of any of these little stories, you will see a 3 dots button. And so I can tap on that, and up will pop some options. First and foremost is the option to share the story. When you do share this story, what it will share is a link to the Apple News article. For some people, that's annoying. If they don't have an Apple device, or if they don't have Apple News, or if they don't like Apple News, that can be kind of frustrating, but that is the way that it's done. You can save the story so that you can view it later. You can copy the link to the story so that you could then, paste it somewhere else or share it later. You can give some prompts on what you want or don't want from Apple News. So maybe, for example, as much as I love the St. Louis Cardinals, because this was my great-grandparents' team growing up, I don't really care about sports. So I'm going to choose to have it suggest less, meaning stories like this I don't really want to see. Over time, it will pay attention to what you've said I want more of, want less of, and will serve you stories based on that. And then last but not least, in each of these little 3 dots menus, you are presented with the name of the publication from which the story comes, and you have the option to go to, they call these publications, they call them channels, to go to the channel, to follow the channel, to block the channel, or to manage notifications. Now, if I go to the channel and I'm not going to go to that one because I just told it that I don't care about that. So let's go to this Wired channel. So I'll tap on the 3 dots. I will look at the bottom where it says Wired. I will choose Go to Channel, and up pops the channel for Wired. And you'll notice, if you were watching, if you're not, I'm describing it to you. Wired is actually a publication that has magazines. So because I'm an Apple News Plus subscriber, I have access to even more the issues of Wired that are available at the top, but also the latest stories from Wired. And channels have a little bit more power to display more stuff. So at the top, you will see top stories, you'll see issues, you'll see business, culture, gear. So you can kind of break it down based on the different types of stories that are available. Now, the 3 dots also have the information that we've had elsewhere. So I can share the channel, I can copy the link, but here's the other option. The unfollow channel option and the block channel option are here, as well as manage notifications. If you follow a channel, you're going to see more stories from that channel kind of being surfaced because it's the stuff that you want to view. If you unfollow the channel, it's going to only show Wired stuff if it's top news, or if it makes sense to display it in certain news sections. So you might still see it in tech, the tech section. But if I block the channel, that means no stories from Wired will ever appear for me in any of the news sections because I'm completely blocking the channel. And the last part is manage notifications. Now, I do have notifications turned off for news because I set up different notifications early on and I didn't want to go in and change a bunch of them. But what this allows you to do is say, hey, when Wired publishes a story and they sort of tell Apple News, hey, this is a story that needs to be pushed to people, please display that notification to me. So you can do that channel by channel by channel, which publications or channels you want to have actually display information for you. Now, that is the main section here, the Today section. It starts with top stories, and then it gets into some of your favorites, for example, stories that have been shared with you. So Rosemary recently shared a link to a Cult of Mac article. And because Cult of Mac is part of Apple News, I can easily pop up that story in my Apple News section. There's also the News Plus narrated section where these stories have been recorded. And so I'm able to listen back to them for you, which is specifically a section based on what I seem to be interested in. And then there are also things like the editor's picks, what the editors feel. I'm going to let Rosemary talk about the puzzles section in a moment, so I won't mention that for now. But then there's some stuff too, like what's available in News Plus. So these tend to be kind of deeper stories that require a little bit more effort. They're often really well designed specifically for Apple News. So they might have really cool imagery. They may have video. They may have some animations built in. And from there, you can see kind of what categories you might like. So Siri, for example, suggested, and again, Siri is the term that Apple gives to kind of all of its AI efforts. So the fact that over time, Siri has seen that I pay attention to machine learning, it's suggested that I might want to follow the category called machine learning and have that pop up more. So that's the Today section. You can kind of keep scrolling and seeing stories that are important to you or important to the world now and in the future. And again, I showed you that by tapping on the 3 dots, you're able to get more information. But there are some other sections here down at the bottom, including News Plus, Sports, Audio, and Following. News Plus is the section for people who are subscribers of Apple News Plus. This is going to have, first and foremost, some of the stories that are only available to Apple News Plus users, but also the magazines to which you have subscribed as an Apple News Plus subscriber. So I have The New Yorker, I have Scientific American, Vox, and GQ. So I might want to open up Scientific American and see what stories are available in here and kind of scroll through and look at some of the information, the contents. I can always pop up the table of contents and learn more about these different sections. Here are some beautiful photos of birds and all sorts of stuff. And again, this is all part of my Apple News Plus subscription. From here at the top, I can choose to like or dislike this channel, basically have it give me more of this or less of this. I can share this piece, and I've got the three dots to do what I've been able to do before. The News Plus section also has the magazines that I've downloaded, the newspapers that I've downloaded, and then a full catalog of the stuff that is available in Apple News Plus, so I can see and subscribe to what might be interesting. So this is a great way to know what newspapers have an Apple News Plus channel, like the Wall Street Journal, the Los Angeles Times, the Globe and Mail, the Fresno Bee, etc., and then the magazines that are available. Kind of quickly get a picture of what's available. The middle segment down at the bottom is sports. And here you can follow sports stories in general. If you have not named your teams, then that information is there in the top stories section. But you also have the option to follow specific teams. So if you want to stay up to date with what they are doing in particular, you're able to do that. And then at the top, there's a little section called that says all sports. And this lets you sort by sport. So if you want to learn about the NHL specifically, if you're into hockey, then it will show you sports scores for the NHL as well as schedules, and will give you stories about the NHL as well as some of the charts about who's winning, who's losing, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very easy way to kind of sort your sport. The next section is called audio. And this, of course, is the segment that has actual audio. In many cases, it's not just, a robot reading back an article. It is actually a human being who has taken the time to provide a full recording of a piece. And then in some cases, it's specifically audio that is it's more podcast-like. It is written and delivered in a certain way that it provides more. There's the Apple News Today and Apple News and Conversation podcasts that are part of this, and then Apple News Plus Narrated, which are sections that will provide you with, again, those articles that are read back. So you can get your kind of day-to-day understanding of what's going on with the news with Apple News Today and Apple News and Conversation, and then specifically hear articles that you maybe are driving and you're not able to hear otherwise or read otherwise. You can hear them that way. And then the last section is the following section. This tells me which of the channels and topics I'm following, so I can see that I'm following example, I'm following TechCrunch. I'm also able to see what Siri suggests that I should follow, like the category of machine learning, 3D printing, cybersecurity. And at any time, I can choose to edit and remove some of the categories that I'm not interested in following anymore. This is also the section where if you see a topic or a news story, and you want to find it, this is the place where you go to type in that news story, the headline for the news story, and see if it pops up in Apple News. I use this if, for example, something is paywalled. It may be that Apple News and that publication have an agreement, and so the story will be able to be visible within Apple News, where I otherwise would not be able to read it because it's behind a paywall. So I'm making use of the subscription that I have to get that information that I need. So that is kind of a rundown of all of the different parts of Apple News Plus. But Rosemary, you wanted to talk a little bit, I think, more in detail about, first and foremost, puzzles. But perhaps you have some other things that you'd like to say about Apple News Plus.
I do have a few other things to mention. I unfortunately appear to have broken my Apple News, and I do not have puzzles at the moment at all. I have a feeling this is a bug, so I'm hoping you're going to be able to show folks where to find that. But in the meantime, there are a few things that I wanted to mention that you can do in Apple News Plus. So, you can, under following, actually specifically block channels. And at any point, you can view those channels that you have blocked. So I found that there were just some things that apparently were targeting me and just kept coming up all the time. So I have blocked those. Similarly, are some options for family sharing so that you can actually, if you have an Apple One subscription like I do, you can actually share Apple News Plus with everybody in your family, which is very nice. But while we're in settings, under Apple News, there are a few options that you may want to turn on and off. So, for example, I have set it to only use my location while I'm using the app, and it doesn't need my precise location. Generally is good enough for me. I don't have notifications from Apple News because, quite frankly, if the news is that breaking, I'm sure I will find out about it some other way. But what I do have is I have News Plus offline mode. So this is an Apple News Plus specific feature where you can have automatic downloads. And then if you go into the download options, you can choose to download recent stories, saved stories, magazine issues, and then there's also a toggle for optimizing your storage, which means that images in stories are not going to be 8,972 megapixels. They will be compressed down to something much smaller. Now, there's also an option here to sync my sports. I do not care about sports. At some point, Apple got the idea that I was interested in a sports team. I've turned this off. The problem went away. I did tell them I wasn't interested in the sports team, but there we go. There is also another option, which is restrict stories in Today. So if you turn on restrict stories in Today, which is a Today feed setting, then only stories from channels that you follow will appear in the Today setting and other sources will be blocked, which means that if you go back to Apple News and then to the Today section, then it should be in my experience, a more customized to you feed, which I have found to be better. Previously, I was finding stories from sources that I blocked would still show up in here, and then it would just be like source blocked. It's like that's not the best experience. It's kind of like what's happened is you've got a personal butler and they've got the paper before you and they've ironed it nice and crisp so that the print doesn't transfer to your fingers, and then they got one of those identity roller stamps and they rolled over the stories that you're not interested in seeing. This is digital, folks. We don't need somebody to sit here with scissors and glue. But if I want to read a story from the Telegraph 3 years ago about a German zoo turning poo into profit during lockdown, it's there in my Today feed. So yes, that is a great option. Now, theoretically, if I tap into following and look here at the top, puzzles is supposed to be right there. But unfortunately, puzzles is just entirely missing for me right now, which is a shame because I was messing with quartiles the other day, and I think I must have done something by accident to make it disappear. But I was wondering, Mikah, if you could show us the puzzles, please.
Yes. And what we have access to via Apple News at the moment are the puzzles that are your crosswords. So there's the kind of crossword and the crossword mini. Soon there will be access to a new puzzle, Quartiles. But this is a simple crossword puzzle that publishes every single day. And you can even go back and see the different puzzles that have been available. And I like that they all have kind of a name. So, whether they're difficult, there's moderate, there's challenging, and then also they have a theme, whether they're freestyle or not, as well as the tiny crossword minis that are much easier to solve. And you can at any time pop into them. You can share them with other people if you like. You can choose more puzzles, which will, of course, bring you to the crossword. Now, Apple started with just crosswords. It's clear that more puzzles over time, like Quartiles, are going to come into this because now it's Apple News Plus puzzles. And so I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing more here. almost taking on the New York Times different puzzles that they have access to. So I can tap into this and I can, I have access to the keyboard. I have access to the different words if I want to see them kind of written out in a list. Some people like to work this way, not my style for sure. And just like the New York Times crossword, you can kind of auto check. You can check a square, check a word, check the puzzle, reveal if you need to. And then, of course, you have access to things like having a timer pop up, highlight linked clues, if you always auto check, if you skip filled squares after you've entered a letter, and then what happens after you end a word. So you can, if you want to time yourself, you're able to do that as well and kind of see how you're doing. Now, a puzzle that has been started will show up with a little circle in the middle. That covers it for now because, again, we don't have access to any more of the puzzles, but we should soon start to see more of them pop up. Alrighty, folks. Anything else you want to say about Apple News?
Not really, Mikah, other than if you've got a family plan, maybe remind your family that they have access to it, because my mum was convinced that she did not have access to Apple News Plus, and just assumed that art links from her colleagues at work did not work. It turns out that if she opens them on her iPhone, those links work perfectly because I'm already paying for it. So definitely have a look in the magazines and stuff as well. If you are subscribing to any digital magazines or anything, then you may find that you actually already have access through Apple News Plus, or you could consolidate them into a single Apple News Plus subscription to get advantage of all of that. And I believe the Wirecutter, which is often recommended for a number of articles based on like buying the best home pressure cooker or best 33 best last minute Mother's Day gifts, that is now available in Apple News Plus. So if you are a fellow Wirecutter follower, then you may want to check that out and add that to your sources.
Alrighty, folks. With that, I think I can hear the music. That means it's time for Shortcuts Corner. Alrighty, you know what that means. It is time for the part of the show where you write in with your Shortcuts Corner requests, and Rosemary Orchard, our shortcuts expert, provides a response. The shortcuts request comes in this week from Lottie, who writes, "Dear Rosemary and Mikah, I am a big fan of you both individually and together, from your D&D podcasts all to your Mac and iOS centered and productivity podcasts. You two are amazing." That's so sweet. So here is my request. I am an Apple Music listener. My favorite friend to talk about music with uses Spotify. Oh, yes. I would like a shortcut that would take the song I'm playing in Apple Music and create a Spotify link I could paste into a message. Bonus if it could just put itself into the message of the usual friend. I love this question. This is a common conundrum among folks. So I can't wait to see and learn about how to make this shortcut and what you can do.
Yeah. So to start with, I had to figure out how on earth I could do this, because this seemed like a pretty impossible request, right? Without just like going and searching. And I had a look, there's lots of libraries where people have published lots of shortcuts over time. And so I had a look, and one person was literally searching Google for, the name of the song and the name of the artist, and then Spotify. There are better things, there are worse things available. But I did find this great little website called song.link, which it redirects to something else. But what you can do if you have a URL for a song or an album or a podcast, then you can actually paste it in here. Then you'll get more. You'll get other links. You can also search. So if I search for Kings and Queens by Ava Max, which is a song I was listening to the other day, then I can search, and it is searching. And it will take a little while because it has to go off and find this. And there's multiple versions of some songs. It hasn't actually found it, but that's okay. I will just try Kings and Queens instead. There we go. Kings and Queens by Ava Max. Now, if I tap on this, then it pops up a song page. And you could theoretically actually just get like a URL for this page and share it with your friend, which isn't the worst idea in the world. And then they've got links where they can find it on loads of different sites. So they can get it on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, Pandora, Deezer, SoundCloud, Amazon Music, Tidal, Napster, Yandex, Audius, Audio Mac, Boomplay, Angami. And then there's also options to buy it on iTunes and Amazon. And you can see it's got, like the album artwork and everything there. It's quite nice. But Larry specifically wanted the Spotify URL. And it turns out song.link has an API. Of course it does. So I'm going to show folks how I created a shortcut so that we can use this. So Larry said, I would like to take the song that I'm currently listening to and share it with my friend. So I started with the shortcuts action called Get Current Song. This is very simple. It is a shortcut action that's built into shortcuts. I love it. And then I put an if statement underneath, which says, hey, if there is no value on the current song, then pop up an alert that says no current song found and stop the shortcut. Okay, so if we don't have a song, we're not going to keep running and run into a whole bunch of errors in the not too distant future. Okay, that would be a bit of a problem. And then what I did is I popped in a text action. And it says current song, but this is the title of the current song. And then there's a space and there's artist. Okay. And what these are from is, if I revealed this action, they are from the current song. So I'm searching for the title and the artist of the current song. Okay. And I pop those into a text box together because then I can put this text into the find on iTunes store action. Now, there's a reason for this. And that's because if you just search for example, Islands in the Stream, okay, made famous by Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, okay, there have been so many covers of that song that if I just search for Islands in the Stream, then I'm going to run into a problem of it's going to get whatever one is the most recent, and that's going to be a little bit tricky, okay, because that's probably not the one that you're listening to. But by searching for the current song and the artist, then, we're on to a better track. If you folks want to make this more precise, okay, because you're specifically listening to the extended platinum remix edition, okay, that's the album. What you can do is in that text box, you can pop in there, you can select your variable, select your current song, and then from that current song, you can choose the album, okay, to make this even more precise. I have just left this as current song and artist. Okay, and then it's going to search for this on the iTunes store, and it just gets the first one of these. Then it gets the store URL, and then there's some replace text, split, and get first item. This is a little bit of magic to get your current country, okay? Because SongLink, the API, would like you to specify your country. Now, for most people, this probably wouldn't pose a problem because, they've got the same things available as everybody else. But I have found in some cases, there can be regional differences in song names and also what albums are available and album names and so on and so forth. So it can be quite important to use that. So I've done a little bit of magic there, which I'm not going to go into too much detail on. But the important thing after that is then I am URL encoding the actual store URL. So I've got the Apple Music URL of this track now. I've URL encoded it, and then I've created a URL which is talking to the song.link API, okay, and it's sending it the URL, which is the URL encoded URL, and my user country, okay? So if you've got a song that's Indian and you are from India and you're looking for it, then it will find the correct version, I hope. Cross my fingers, okay? And then it gets the contents of this URL because it's talking to an API. Now, this API, like many other APIs or application programming interfaces, basically goes off, it swallows a bunch of data, and it spits it back out in something called JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. Now, you don't need to know exactly what this is, but it's important for you to know that JSON and XML both end up as dictionaries and shortcuts, which means that we can use a really great shortcuts action called get value from dictionary. Okay, so we are getting the value. Okay, and if you think of the data that's sent back as a tree, okay, so we've got, the whole data, that's the tree. We need to go down the branch called links by platform. Then we need to go into the sub branch called Spotify, and then we need to grab the leaf called URL. So it's links by platform.spotify.url, which gives us a link, and then it puts it into a message. And I've added a little bonus because I am a weirdo. When you import this URL, when you import the shortcut, it's actually going to ask you to choose your friend. And then it will put your friend in here at the bottom under recipients, and it will pop open that message for you to hit send. Now, I have left, I've turned off show when run, so this is just going to magically go boom and do it, okay? It'll actually just send it to your friend, and that'll be it, and you're done. But you can turn that on if you would like, so that it'll pop it up and make you actually confirm the send. But that is how you can do this using an API. Now, I'm sure some folks are there going, oh my gosh, API sounds scary. If I hadn't done a little bit of extra magic to get your country, because say, for example, I just assumed everybody is in the US, which a lot of people are, to be fair, then, I could have cut out, let me see, 1, 2, 3, like 4 steps from this perhaps. But even so, this shortcut isn't that long. And a lot of this is taken up at the beginning with just, hey, if there is no song, tell you no, goodbye, so long, and thanks for all the fish. And after that, it's not too scary. And I think folks will find if they have a little look at some APIs, they aren't as scary as they thought. And if it lets you do something like this, then that's pretty cool. Now, if you wanted to do this, but you didn't want, for example, the Spotify link, you wanted the Amazon Music link, well, in this section down here, you could change this to Amazon Music. So lowercase Amazon, uppercase M for music, and then lowercase with the rest of music. So links by platform.amazonmusic.url, and it would share an Amazon Music URL instead. So I'm going to change that back to Spotify just because I want to see if I can send Mikah a Spotify link. So I'm going to run this. There is no current song found. Good test. Successfully passed. Let's pop into music. And I am going to play School Days by Chuck Berry. So something is playing. And now let's try. And it's going along. It's getting everything out. There we go. I am going to allow this to run, which you may have to do if you haven't run this before. And then in a moment, it will take a little while because the song.link app on the web has got to do a lot of data. But ta-da.
Ta-da, there's the Spotify link. Woo!
So
Wow.
it works, folks. Kind of scary, but not too scary. And also, here's the real bonus. You don't need to learn about how any of this stuff works. You can just download the shortcut and use it. But we could include, if folks would like, the URLs for the song.link API and so on. But if you just go to song.link and look on the left-hand side, they do have some shortcuts and so on there. I had a look at them. And I found a couple of them, and I based what I've written here on those, but I just tried to make this as clean and simple for Larry as I could, because I don't want to have to disclose, oh yeah, you need to download 17 third-party apps in order to do this, and you need to, pray to Cthulhu and sacrifice 6 goats. And paint your nails orange, blue, and pink simultaneously. That seemed like a lot of work. So instead, I have made a simplified version of this, which will hopefully just do exactly what Larry wants, but give some folks maybe some ideas for some other things that they could do too.
I really love how you described the branches leading out to the little leaf. That was excellent. I think that's very helpful for people to visualize. So I loved that moment, and I love this shortcut, and I love this show, doggone it. And if you love this show, well, maybe you have a question, you have a comment, you have a topic you want us to cover, you can email us. iOStoday@twit.tv is how you leave your Shortcuts Corner requests. Heading to twit.tv/iOS is how you subscribe to the audio version of this show. If you'd like to subscribe to the video version of this show, well, you can do that by joining Club Twit. At twit.tv/clubtwit, you can become a member for $7 a month. When you join the club, you will gain access to some awesome stuff. Every single Twit show with no ads, just the content. You will gain access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show, special Club Twit events. Those all get published there. Access to the members-only Discord server, a fun place to go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members and also those of us here at Twit. And access to the video versions of all of our Club Twit shows, including this show, hands on Mac, hands on Windows, and so much more. So consider joining, again, Club Twit at twit.tv/clubtwit. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to keep up with what you're doing and follow along online, where should they go to do that?
The best place to go is rosemaryorchard.com. It's got links to social media, books, apps, podcasts, all of the stuff that you can find me on. And of course, I'm always hanging out in the Club TWiT Discord as well. Somebody else, Alex in the chat room, was just saying the song.link is what they use as well. And they found a shortcut that will do it on the shortcut subreddit, which is one of the places that I searched to find the source that I used to create this. So it's very exciting to hear other people using song.link. Mikah, where can folks find you?
You can find me at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or head to chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Thank you all for tuning in this week for this episode of iOS Today. Thank you, Club TWiT members, for your support. We appreciate all of you, even those of you who are listening to the version that's available for free. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for being here. We will see you again next week for another episode of iOS Today. Bye-bye.